Hi, in this video I will be showing you how to paint 3 glowing Christmas tree outdoors using watercolor and 3 simple hacks. So this is not going to be a complicated painting process. Instead, this is going to be a very freestyle and easygoing painting process. So hello and welcome to Run My Arts watercolor series. So how are you getting on with the winter at your place? It's quite bad for me. As you can see, my hands are quite dry and dark. I'll be demonstrating this painting on Canson cold press watercolor paper, 300 grams per square meter. And as you already know, I'm going to paint 3 Christmas trees. So I have pre-sketched just a basic triangular shape of those Christmas trees. So as I mentioned earlier, this is not a complicated painting process. It's very freestyle and easygoing. Anyone can do it as long as you follow the basic steps. And I have taped the paper onto my painting board, and I'm going to start to paint this using the wet on wet technique. So I am pre-wetting the entire paper with clean water, and the first color that I'm going to use for the tree, which is in the middle, is yellow, Indian yellow. You can use any color of your choice. So there's going to be 3 different colors here, which is yellow, red and blue. So basically the 3 different colors that I'm using is going to act as an underpainting, because these are glowing trees. So I want that glow effect from the underpainting color, which represents the LED lights or the ornaments on the Christmas trees. So you can choose any color of your choice. You can paint them with purple, pink, any color. So I'm not very particular about this, but I have chosen these 3 colors, and I have also dropped the same Indian yellow on the top of the other 2 trees. This is to indicate the decorative star on your Christmas tree. Now I am quickly painting the background, and the color that I'm using is indigo. If you don't have indigo, you can use your paints gray, or you can also use some darker blue shades. And after applying the paint, I am just going to drop in some water droplets using one of my brushes, which is a rigger brush. So just tap your brush in order to create that friction that will enable the water droplets to drop onto your painting. So the water droplets on the wet paint will form tiny particles of marks, which indicates snowflakes and so on. So the bottom part of the Christmas trees that remains white with a little stain from those 3 colors are going to indicate snow covered ground. And as you can notice here, I am just cleaning up the stained area with a clean damp brush. So my painting is completely dry, and to kickstart, I am going to use a simple hack, which is a candle stick, a small candlestick. Since this is a small painting, so I would advise you to use a small candlestick. And I'm going to draw over the first tree, which is the yellow colored Christmas tree. So I'm going to start to draw some tiny dots or circles to indicate the LED lights or ornaments on this particular Christmas tree. So basically the candle wax acts as a water repellent or waterproof onto the colored area of the painting. So usually you can do this by applying masking liquid, but sometimes masking liquid can be a bit complicated. They can tear off your paper, or just applying them seemed to be a bit tedious for some of us. In fact, the lifespan of the masking liquid seemed to be very short lately. I've got some masking liquid that have dried and I can no longer use them. So the candlestick appears to be a good alternative to this. If you find it difficult to apply the candle wax, since it is transparent or clear in color, you can probably pre-sketch the ornaments or the dots or circles on your Christmas tree, but I don't wish to do so since it's just a very easy-going painting, so I don't want to complicate further by making more sketch. And you can check your wax status or pattern underneath the light. As you tilt, you can see the pattern, and if you notice there are gaps to be filled, so you just go back right in and fill in those gaps. So once done with the candle wax, I am going to start to paint the yellow Christmas tree with some green shade, permanent green olive shade that I'm using in this video, and I am pre-wetting the area since the candle wax acts as a water repellent, so I am quite confident to paint these using the wet on wet technique. So after pre-wetting the paper, I am just dropping in those green shades that I mentioned earlier, and as I paint the tree, you can notice that the patterns that I drew using the candle wax are popping up immediately. So this is one way of achieving a very quick highlight on your watercolor painting. The only cons that comes with using the candle wax is you can't go back to adjusting those marks that you have made using those candle wax. If you use a masking liquid, you can remove the masking liquid and paint on those white areas that was concealed from your paint. But in this method, you can't make any more changes onto those stains. So as for the hack number 2, I am going to apply some tiny water droplets, just like what I did on the background on the indigo colored paint. So in order to do this, I am painting the blue tree with the same green shade. You can make them darker. You can make your green shade darker by adding in some other colors like sapphire or a darker blue shade to arrive at a very dull green or deep green. So just paint them directly onto the dry paper. I don't wish to paint this using the wet on wet technique because I'm going to already apply the water droplets, so a very wet consistency will actually distort the painting further. Once done, you want to drop in those water droplets using a smaller size brush. I would say a rigger brush or a script brush would do, in order to achieve those tiny little patterns on the small size Christmas tree. Notice how the water droplets is blooming onto the wet paint. However, it is not in a perfect round shape or dots compared to the first Christmas tree. But if you like the flower bloom effect as in frost seen on your Christmas tree ornament or lights, then you can choose to use this method. So for the next hack number 3, I am going to use a Q-tip or cotton bud. But before I use it, the painting technique is similar to the blue tree. So I am just using my wet paint onto the dry surface of the paper. So paint your tree with any green shade of your choice, and then before the paint dries, I am going to use the Q-tip to lift up the paint pigment from the wet paint. So just press the Q-tip or the cotton bud onto the wet painting, and you will have to do this quickly because if the painting has dried, then it would be difficult to lift out those pigment. And if your cotton bud has become stained or dirty, then just use a new one. So before I move on to the next step, I'm just showing you that I have pre-sketched the decorative star onto all those 3 trees, and I'm going to paint the background using a very dark shade, which is the same indigo that I used earlier, but I have dropped in some blue shades as well, as in sapphire blue. You can choose to use one color as long as it's a darker shade. So right now I am painting in those indigo mix onto the dry paper. So this is a wet on dry technique. If you would like to use the wet on wet technique, go ahead, but I'm afraid you might have some difficulty painting the pre-sketched star shape. And this is basically a simple negative painting where you avoid painting the light areas. So in order to easily paint this, I would advise you to paint this using the wet on dry technique. So just carefully paint the background, especially when you are close to the star sketch, so that you don't accidentally stain them. I'm just repainting areas that I feel have faded a bit, so this will help to darken those areas. So you can do the same. It's all up to your preference. And once again, while the paint is still wet, I am dropping in those water droplets using my rigger brush. You can also drop in other paint droplets. As you can see here, I'm using the Indian yellow just to add some extra color to your painting. So as for the next step, I am going to repaint all the Christmas trees by redefining their shape. So in order to do that, I am using my rigger brush to focus on the shapes of the pine trees or the pine needles, so that it looks much more slender. So I'm using the same grain mix and painting it using the wet on dry technique. So basically it's wet paint on the dry surface of the paper. So using the same painting technique, I am going to paint the remaining two trees. However, as for the blue tree and red tree, I'm a bit more careful with my brush strokes because I don't want to overlap the colored ornaments or the blue colored lights, LEDs, that was formed using the water droplets and Q-tip method. So you don't want to accidentally stain them, so be mindful with your brush strokes. So at this point of time, I realized that the colored ornaments on this red tree seem a bit faded. So I have decided to drop in the same permanent carmine that I used as the underpainting. And after applying those dots, I am giving them some light washes using my clean damp brush. Following that, I have decided to do the same thing onto this blue tree. So I've mixed a little bit of the turquoise blue onto my sapphire blue so that it looks brighter, and applying those color dots onto this blue Christmas tree. And you don't have to apply those paints onto all the stained areas. You can leave out a few of those light pigments so that the contrasting effect creates a better look of the Christmas tree. In addition to that, I am also applying the white gouache paint onto some part of the Christmas lights, ornament, or the tree itself as highlights. I have also extended the white gouache paint onto the outline of the stars, and I'll show you in a while how to achieve a glow effect after applying this paint. So I am going to use this fan brush, a damp version of this brush. You can actually use any flat brush, or you can even attempt to use your damp round brush, but I thought I'll give this fan brush a go because it acts like a rake. So I am dragging those white paint that I've applied onto those stars and also extending those brush strokes onto the tree itself, and as you can see, the damp brush is able to drag those white pigment, and immediately it achieves those glow effect. So give it a go and let me know in the comment section if you liked this method. I find it easy to quickly achieve a glow effect, especially with gouache paints. And in order to complete this painting, I have extended those white gouache paint using the same fan brush and creating some spatters onto the paint to create an impression of snow. You can also create the paint spatters using other brushes. Over here I am using my rigger brush, and it manages to create a slightly bigger paint spatter. So use any brush of your choice to create these paint spatters. And with this, we are done with the glowing outdoor Christmas trees. So did you like all those 3 simple hacks that I shared? I think it's a very easy way to paint your painting in a very freestyle manner without much worry about how realistic your tree looks like. And it's perfect to paint it during this festive season and give it out as a Christmas greeting card. And I believe you could notice from the screen itself how glowy this entire painting looks. So if you like the tips that I shared, and if you find this tutorial fun, then don't forget to hit the like and share button, as well as subscribe to my channel. And I hope you will try out this painting, give it a go, and I'll see you in another tutorial. Bye.